Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla, let's go over the market and figure out what has happened. I am unfortunately re-recording this video because Windows Update as usual messes up my mic, so I have to do it all again. But with that being said and done, let's just get into it. Tesla closing the day down, unfortunately, 3.4%, closing at 142, pretty much 142, almost on the dot per share on the day, which of course is going to be an underperformance compared to the market, which is having a pretty nice green day, a solid 1% on the market. So as usual, Tesla is green, or red rather. So yeah, let's talk about it, right? I want to make this a bit quicker. My first video was like 15 minutes long, but I'll make this one a little bit quicker. But if you enjoyed the video, regardless, I really will appreciate that like button, especially with the second time recording. That would help a lot for my make me feel a little bit better, let's just say that. But on top of that, of course, my membership section is live. If you're interested, for just $2.99 a month, you get access to all my intraday thoughts, posts, technical analysis, options flow, etc. on Tesla. I was also talking to my members throughout the weekend for quite some time. Going over pretty much all that weekend drama that happened, which pretty much is the main sole reason, in my opinion, why Tesla is down yet another 3.4%. There were a bunch of price cuts, of course, over the weekend, FSD price drops, etc. But if you actually do the math, apparently, according to a Tesla bull that I followed, apparently the prices went down by 2,000 on the 3 and the Y, but the inventory discounts are gone, so it actually ended up being a net increase. Unfortunately, though, the SNX in China went down by like 20%. So anyway, regardless, a lot of drama over the weekend. So Tesla, of course, is taking a bit of more, punishment for that. Now, I want to talk about this really quickly as well, but let's talk about what we can expect. So let's go in the weekly chart. I'll make this short and sweet instead of my rambling first video for 15 minutes. But essentially, we officially came down to the 140 level. We touched it, and we so far have held and bounced off of it. Thankfully, the market was green today. I mean, who knows if the market was red today? But the market was green, helped us kind of, keep around that general area, and we came pretty much almost exactly to the bottom of this trend line I've been talking about for like weeks now, right? Back even when we were up all the way over here. Now, obviously, we never knew if we're for sure is going to come down here to touch it, but obviously, well, now we do, right? It's obviously here, right? And this is, of course, that massive trend line that happened ever since all the way back in 2020, bounced off of it here. Both bounces so far have led to some pretty sizable rallies short term. Pretty quick ones too, right? Short to medium term. And, we're pretty much right back at it. Now, the thing I want to make clear is the sentiments, right? When we were at the top of this trend line all the way up here, and you remember back, in late last year, I was talking about this trend line for quite some time. I was talking about the level, 265 for quite some time. And I kept calling this red line up here the final boss trend line. I'm sure some people that are still, watching or been following for a while remember me saying that, right? Everyone was bullish. Everyone was excited for Tesla. Everyone loved Elon, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Everyone, 300, 400 next. And, I kept talking about how, we have to break this line, guys. We have to break this line. We have to close above it. I wish I listened to myself more as well. I don't think we'd fall this hard, though, to be fair. I did not expect that. But I did expect, not to be euphoric just yet until we break it. Clearly, we got rejected by it and we fell down. But the point I'm trying to make is everyone was bullish here and we were at the top of the trend line on the weekly chart, the most important one, and we rejected. Now we're pretty much the literal opposite in every single sense imaginable. We're now at the bottom of the trend line. The trend line that needs to support us. The trend line that we can potentially get a pretty sizable bounce from. And so far we're holding. It's one day, of course, and earnings is tomorrow. But so far we're holding. Good news, right? Second of which, of course, is the fact that sentiment is atrocious now. Sentiment was so bullish up here, but now it's super bearish here. If anything, it should be the opposite, you would think, right? But it's not. That's not how the market usually works, right? The herd mentality is usually the one that's wrong. And now everyone is extremely bearish. Everyone and their mother is expecting Tesla to completely tank post earnings, and everyone is saying that they'll buy the dip. They're like, Tesla's going to tank, but I'm going to be buying the dip when it tanks. Everyone is saying that. It's actually crazy how many people are saying that, which makes me think that that's just not what's going to happen. But I'm obviously not going to use that to base my logic overall off of. It's just sentiment is important to kind of follow, especially on a stock like Tesla. But the point I'm trying to make here is the fact that we are, of course, bouncing pretty much so far exactly where we need to potentially set a bottom in. And like I said many times, in order for me to really be convinced that this is the bottom, right, I'd obviously want to see a nice bullish reaction. Step number one. Step number two, I'd want to see at the least a close back above this 152-ish level. Ideally, though, 160 would be very, very bullish. That would be a massive step number two. And step number three would be essentially making a fresh higher high, which is pretty much above 182. If we can get to step number three and achieve it, I think the bottom is in. But otherwise, every incremental step that we take from there is just more and more confidence towards the bottom potentially being in, with step number three making me like 90% sure it's in. That's the main way I'm looking at it. Now, the next thing to pay attention to, of course, is going to be the overall just how the chart looks, right? The weekly time frame on the chart is, of course, the bullish divergence is gone on the weekly chart. It's gone. It no longer exists. But I want to make it very clear, right? Ever since Tesla is sitting at oversold territories, well, not technically oversold territories, but it's one of the most oversold territories it has ever seen on the RSI, on the weekly, in its literal history of existing as a publicly traded, company or stock, right? 2 times happened before that were very slightly lower than where we are right now. And of course, the lowest one was when we hit $100 not too long ago, like 2 years ago or whatever it was now, right? Where the whole market tanked, Elon was selling. I'm sure you all remember that. But if we very quickly take a look as to what happened during those times when Tesla, which by the way, we're at 32 right now, pretty much 30 or lower, is when these bottoms, like not even just a bottom, substantial bottoms have been found. For instance, $100, we came down, started this trend line, bounced off of $100 per share. Weekly was oversold, which is rare. We're almost oversold on the weekly, also rare, right? This is the 4th lowest we've ever been in the history, but massive bounce followed through pretty much like 6-7 weeks in a row of just green. Cool. Let's look at the next example, right? Next example is all the way back here in 2019. Let's take a look at it, zoom in, right? Also followed with, pretty substantial sell-off, right? If you look at it from, peak to trough or whatever, right? We can take a look at it like this, right? A pretty sizable, about 53% sell-off, right? Massive sell-off. Weekly pretty much went into oversold territory around 30, massive bounce followed after, right? We bounced from what is this? $11 all the way up to $17, which is almost a 50% increase. Next, right? We zoom out one more time and it's going to be this level right here. Also, followed up with a massive sell-off, right? Several weekly red candles in a row, huge sell-off. Finally entered pretty much 30, massive multi-week rally as well. And we're pretty much there again. We're not exactly there. We're extremely close though. We're literally 2 points off on the RSI from reaching that level that I just showed you, pretty much all 3 of them. All of which followed with multi-week rallies, like 40% multi-week rallies. Doesn't mean this has to be the case. This could be the anomaly. This could be the one that doesn't do that essentially. Obviously, that is a risk. That is a possibility, a very real possibility, especially with earnings literally tomorrow. But if history is anything to judge, the stock's movement and behavior off of, it suggests that this should be the place that we bounce. But we'll see. I'm just saying, if there's a place to do it, it's right here, right? So keep that in mind. That's very important to understand. Taking a quick look at, actually, by the way, one last thing I'll look at is, of course, if we do bounce, where can we potentially go? Let's take out the Fibonacci, go from this swing high all the way to this overall potential, like ultimate massive swing low, right? And if we get a bounce from here, at the very least, minimum, I'd expect to bounce up to about the 180s, if not even enter the 200s briefly. Assuming this is just nothing more than like an overall, like actual dead cat bounce. I'm not talking about this tiny dead cat bounce. I mean like an actual dead cat bounce. Assuming that that's all it is, this is where it would take us back to the 180s to potentially even like the low 200s once again. And from there, we'll of course reevaluate if we actually get there and see how it looks like, right? But just keep that in mind, right? Just keep that in mind. So we'll see. We'll take it, week by week, day by day. Now, the next thing I want to look at is, of course, going to be the band's regression. Naturally, right? We are, of course, on the weekly sitting at very oversold, not even just oversold, very oversold levels on the band regression level, right? It doesn't get to these levels very often. You can see it's only one other time we came down to the red line, which was back when, we bounced at the 100, which was pretty much the lowest level Tesla has ever seen in terms of being oversold, right? But ever since then, on the weekly chart, Tesla hasn't reached the second yellow line at the bottom. Barely, ever, almost ever, right? One time we reached just not too long ago off of that earnings, we bounced off of it pretty nicely, right? Got a beautiful rally from about 180 all the way back up to about $205 per share. Happened a bit over here. We got pretty close to it. We didn't really get exactly to it, but pretty close. But still, we didn't really get a massive bounce right away, but we did consolidate and we did essentially base around that area. And then we did get a bit of a rally. So that's important to understand. So we're sitting at pretty extreme levels on the weekly of oversold, and the daily is sitting at very extreme levels, right? They're all the way towards the bottom of the red line. This band's regression it's not often that it would get to these extreme levels, whether it's all the way down here at the bottom red line or the top red line. But here we are. It's extreme levels, very oversold, very bearish sentiment. Everyone thinks earnings is going to fall, and everyone thinks they want to just wait and buy the dip after earnings. We'll see. Maybe I have some cash ready as well in case that does happen, but I personally don't think it will, but I have cash in case it does. But I do have cover calls. I have cash anchor puts, and I have some cash as well, right? So I'm positioned for like every angle, though I prefer it to go up, of course. But, again, the point I'm trying to make here is with these trend lines and everything, that everything is just lining up for this place to be the place to bounce. It doesn't mean it has to, but this would be the place to bounce. Even technically, we still have this bullish divergence on the daily RSI, but man, it's not looking too hot. I'll be honest, it's looking less convincing. So that might be kind of thrown out the window. So we'll see how that plays out. But the daily is also has entered officially oversold territories as well. So we'll see. It really just comes down to this earnings, ladies and gentlemen. Overall, right, this is a beautiful looking chart right here done by Mr. Heisenberg on Twitter or X, right? Pretty much exactly what I've been talking about for quite a while now, right? Just nice visualization. Obviously, massive credit to him for making this, right? Very nice looking chart, right? But also showing pretty much this exact same thing that I've been talking about for quite some time. So a lot of trend lines that are pretty much all intercepting around this, pretty much 140-ish area. This green line, which is the one I just talked about. Also that massive mother of all trend lines, he calls it, which it is, right? So again, this is the place to bounce. The things that were interesting on options flow is this one call that came in for 305 strike, pretty much a year and a half out for $150,000. Very, very out of the money, but it's also very, very, far out in terms of date, about a year and a half. But with something so far out of the money, he probably needs this thing to start moving sooner than later, regardless. And then if you move over back here, obviously overall flow was bearish on Tesla. You can see here, very, very bearish flow. But there was another call that came out that was pretty interesting, which is these two right here. Pretty much 2 million worth of calls, 140 strike, expiring this Friday, by the way. And they bought them pretty much around 1 o'clock this afternoon. And Tesla has done nothing since then. It's pretty much been sideways ever since they bought these calls. So they either expect to pump into earnings tomorrow or they expect to pump post earnings. So we'll see how that plays out as well. But with all that being said and done, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. I shaved off like 4 to 5 minutes off this video, made it a little bit more concise. But my point I'm trying to make here is the fact that we finally touched that massive trendline support I've been talking about for quite some time. We actually ended up coming down to it. And this is the place to bounce, right? Again, I just want to make it clear. No one thought that this would be the place to bounce up here. Everyone thought we would just push through and break above. And everyone was expecting $300-400 per share. And we did the exact opposite. Now everyone's expecting pretty much 100 or less and for earnings to tank and to buy the dip. But we're at the exact opposite. So we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. But all that being said and done, stochastic also, by the way, extremely oversold on the weekly time frame. So that's interesting as well. But yeah, all that being said and done, thanks so much for watching. We have a pretty astronomical week and day tomorrow. So tomorrow is going to be really do or die. But yeah, good luck to everyone. And of course, I'll see you tomorrow.